Hey everyone, I'm going to give it just about 30 seconds to a minute here to let people join, and then we'll go get rolling with the webinar. Hey Anna, Zoom's acting a little strange. Could you let me know if my share of my screen is sharing like it should be?
It is.
Perfect, thank you. All right, we'll get going at 12:01. Okay. Hey everyone, happy holidays. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to join me for today's webinar. If you haven't met me before, I am Trent Gladis. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Woven. My goal today is to give you some tidbits, either if you're a new customer or somebody that's just checking us out for the first time. And my hope is that there's something in here for everyone. Talking about today's problem set, we're focused on risk management. So I'm going to be talking about our audit tool, as well as our incident tool, some integration things we have, as well as some policy targeting. If you work in risk management or compliance these days, this is probably going to resonate with you, which is if you're managing 20 locations or 200 locations, the moment your processes break down, whether that's putting things in file cabinets or Excel spreadsheets or pieces of paper, whatever it might be, everything seems like it's going fine until a problem happens, right? And Woven helps you prepare for those things, specifically at scale. We're going to be doing some actual live demonstration of the functionality. So I'm going to show you some cool stuff today. And we're just going to go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing is, when you're managing multi-location businesses or even enterprise level businesses, right? You're not ignoring the risk. You're aware of it. You're actively managing it and trying to mitigate it. But it takes a lot of either headcount to do that if you're not using tools and systems. You kind of have to brute force those efforts. That's where Woven comes in, which is putting some processes and tools in place that helps you manage this more efficiently, specifically through the tools that we're going to talk about today. A lot of times in the world before Woven, people are doing their audits potentially by location in different tools or on paper, and everybody's doing it maybe a different audit form. Policies are getting sent out as Word docs or signable PDFs or e-signs, and somebody, whether that's a manager or somebody in compliance or HR, is chasing down signatures. Again, sentiment is that things kind of feel fine until something goes wrong, right? You don't pass an audit or you get a lawsuit, and then that's when gaps start to appear. Let's look at some of our tools and see what this could look like if you centralize everything into one platform. First one I want to talk about today is going to be our audit tool. So I'm going to navigate in Woven here. I'm going to go to management, and then I'm going to go to location audits. In this tool, you can see here I have a brand excellence review as an example. But the benefits here is that for all of your locations, you can templatize the audits that are available to them so that everybody is completing them across all of the locations in the same way. Let me show you that real quick. So here I've got 3 different templates that are kind of reviews. If I click into one of these, every single team member, when they go to start an audit, is going to have the same experience. So they're going to get the same set of questions that we see here. And there's no kind of going rogue, if you will. You're also not limited to the number of audits, the templates that you can have, right? So if you have limitless use cases, you could have limitless templates available to you. You're really only limited by your creativity and the processes that you have today. You can always add new things here. This can vary from, a very strong audit checklist or something like that to as well as things as simple as opening and closing checklists and OSHA things and all kinds of stuff. In Woven, because it's so configurable, I also want to show you what it looks like when we start an audit and what that experience can look like. So I'm going to choose something here, let's say on my brand excellence review, and go ahead and click start. It's going to take me into this overview section here. And I have some questions in here about atmosphere, interior, restaurant, rooms, spas. This could be whatever you want. Again, building the template is free entry. This is just a demonstration. If I click on things, Woven's constantly auto-saving. So as an auditor, I am not going to lose my progress. I can always pick this up if I get pulled into an emergency situation, and I can always come back. I also can click on the history information here and see how we've done over the last few audits and make really actionable notes for coaching items on if they're improving or getting worse over time at a certain question for a certain location. On any question, I can add a photo that reinforces my message. I can add notes here, up to 1,000 characters per question, as well as if you're using our maintenance functionality, you can even tie in things like create a work order from this experience. Or I can mark questions as NA. Once all of that's done and you go ahead and complete your audit, Woven is going to have set up distribution lists that are the appropriate parties are going to get notified by job title and essentially the positions that they oversee. And Woven's going to get the ball rolling for all of those things for you without you having to forward everything out. Be a nice clean PDF with all your scoring and color coding and things like that, all done for you. Additionally, though, you're going to have data over time. So once you have historical information put in here, you're going to be able to do things like do exports of all of that information and get it into an Excel spreadsheet if you need to. You can even schedule these as push reports. You can also, if you're a graph person, you can slice and dice the results here and kind of analyze them and see how potentially one location is doing versus other locations. All of that kind of stuff here, even all the way down to the level of how do my auditors compare against each other. In addition, we have in the report center, 2 reports, actually there's more than that now, sorry about that, 5 reports available that also are available as push reports. So if I wanted to, I could get, as an example, this audit summary report for a certain location, run this. I have a nice clean data set here to run through. I picked a bad example here just because that one didn't have any data, but you can see it'll look like this. I can schedule this to go out to my colleagues or myself all the way as frequently as once every hour or a certain number of hours, potentially certain months of the year on certain days of that month, multiple times a week, whatever I want. I can choose if I want that as an Excel or a PDF, and who am I going to send it to? Is it just myself or my colleagues? And set this up as a push report, so it's just on my in my inbox, available for me whenever I need it. The audit feature is probably one of Woven's most adopted pieces of functionality because there are so many use cases. Compliance is certainly one of them, and risk management is certainly one of them, but they really are limitless depending on all the processes that you do today. Moving into the next thing in this compliance suite is incidents. So a lot of times in the real world, right, same idea. If you're using different tools across different locations and things like that, and you haven't a consolidated platform, what can happen is that these incidents end up living in silos or disparate systems that people aren't actively monitoring or not remembering to go look at. Or it's even possible that they are reported days after the fact, or potentially never actually logged like they should have been. In Woven, you have incident tracking here. So I can see all the incidents that have been submitted over time, general information about them. I can add my own incident pretty easily, whether that's for a customer, a team member, a piece of property, or just an other kind of catch-all. I open up this example. Here we have things like marking privacy level. So I can restrict who can see this particular type of incident based on their security level. Quick explanation of this is oftentimes we see that level 1 is for HR and above's eyes only, versus level 2 might be for managers and above, and level none would be available to anybody that has access to view incidents in general. So you can get very, very granular with who can see what, and have Woven do all of that for you and control all of that visibility for you. In addition, rather than having to type in information about your team members, particularly in this case where I have a team member incident, because Woven already knows about your team members and has their information, you can just click here and Woven will then populate their information for you without you having to manually key in all of that or copy paste it from something like your HRS system. You can also tag in additional information here. If you do things like this example, if the claimant is a minor, you can unlock additional fields that are specific to that example. You can also control what fields are required. So each of these things that you see on my screen right now may or may not be required, but you determine that. This feature is highly, highly configurable. Everything that you want to be required can be configured, as well as all the options that you see in these drop-down menus for type or root cause, medical treatment, and so on are all configurable by you. And my team works really closely with you to configure those settings. And you can also include supporting documents. Once you have submitted an incident, you have additional privacy settings that I'm going to show you here in just a second. I go into, as an example, this one right here. You can control who has access to this back office section, right? So maybe, as I'm using a real life example, location managers are allowed to submit incidents, but maybe not so much manage them after the fact. You can restrict who can get to this back office section where they can control, again, the privacy levels, put in information about if an investigation was completed, potentially track insurance information or claim status information, and then also privacy hidden back office notes that maybe are for HR and above's eyes only that other people will not be able to see. And similarly, you have supporting documents, which are for anybody to look at in this incident, and back office documents, which are more security controlled. And then last but not least, you have a nice log here of anything that was changed. You're going to have a date stamp of when was it changed, what did they change it to, and who changed it. So if you ever are looking at an incident report and find that an inappropriate update was made to it, you'll have a log of that as well. Similar to when we were talking about audits, when these are completed, you will already have taught Woven who gets notified of what and when based on the type of incident it is, their job title, and the locations that they oversee. And so again, Woven is going to automatically distribute those as appropriate for your organization. Last in incidents is the data side of things. So depending on what type of data person you are, you can also export all of this information to Excel if you need to. Or if you prefer the graph type of view, you can slice and dice this information very similar to the other dashboard we saw for all of your incidents, see what type of incidents are happening at certain locations, and maybe make action plans accordingly if you find that there's a reoccurring theme. Next, we're going to talk about policies. Give me just one moment here. It's the season where everyone's getting sick, and myself included, so just give me one moment. Apologies for that. Okay, moving into policies. So we're going to look at kind of two different experiences for policies. We're going to look at the management side of policies. So how do I set these up? How do I target for my team members? And then also, how do I follow up on those things if I need to? So first, we're going to start with policy management. In policy management here, you can see that I have currently 18 policies in various statuses of published or unpublished. I've got 2 pages to look at all of those. I'm going to go ahead and click into one of these so we can see some things. So here I can teach Woven how often does this policy need to be acknowledged by my team members. So in this example, it says every 365 days, this is going to ask for a re-acknowledgement. This was updated on the 30th of April. And so 365 days from that date, Woven is going to ask the team members to re-acknowledge this. You can say that this acknowledgement is required once. Maybe it's something just that they need to do on hire, right? Something like time off policy is a good example, but availability, whatever it might be, or never require it, and it's just informational. You can put in the content. The content is, this is a rich text editor, so this can be bullet points, your favorite font, favorite colors, GIFs, YouTube videos, embedded images, you name it. Woven supports all of that here in the content editor. And then you can attach supporting documents. If you have supporting document policy, PDFs that you would like to share in addition to the written content in Woven, you can do so here by just attaching it. And then you target. So you teach Woven, who does this policy apply to and how am I going to distribute it? So here I've taught Woven that this policy applies to all 4 of these specific locations and all positions in my account. However, if I were to want to change that, I can come in here and make tweaks. So this could be a policy that only applies to potentially a certain location or potentially a certain, as an example, state, right? Something like it only applies to my team members in California or whatever, or all, as well as by job title. So not every policy applies across the board, right? Frontline team members may have different policies that they need to acknowledge versus people on your corporate staff. And so you can teach Woven what the rules are in those cases. If I go back into, and I'm going to go ahead and publish this once more. I go back into this policy itself. I also have the ability to download the content as a PDF if I need to potentially print it out and take it to a meeting or something like that. I can remove any pending policy acknowledgements. Maybe there are people that are being reminded about this policy, but they shouldn't have been targeted in the first place. I can kind of take it off their board, if you will. And I can also delete the policy. And then just like the other things we've looked at today, there's insights. So over time, I'm going to see how many people have acknowledged my policy so far. I want to see a list of who those people are. Here are their names. I need a list of the people that have not done it. I can see those names here as well and potentially have people follow up with them. And then I've got interactive charts to interact with all of these policy acknowledgements as well. How long is it taking? Things like that. Then if we switch gears to put on, let's say, our manager hat, I could have a conversation with one of my team members about a policy that they maybe have acknowledged but weren't following, something like a cell phone use policy or dress code, right? I could have that type of conversation with my manager hat on. And then in Woven, I can supplement that by going to their profile. Oops, misclicked that. By going to their profile, I can go into the policies tab. Here, I can see all of the policies that they've acknowledged over the lifetime of their employment with me. I can see the ones that they have outstanding acknowledgements for. And I can also send policies as for one ad hoc, one-off acknowledgements. So here I could say whatever it might be. Let's say it was the cell phone policy, send that to Abigail, and then Abigail is going to get reminders on a daily basis that she has a new policy to acknowledge. I am also, as her manager, going to get a daily email, not just for Abigail, but for any team members that have policies out there that have not been acknowledged. So there's going to be a lot of accountability built in through this tool. You're also in the report center, just like the other things we've seen, going to have some options here for policies, which is going to be a report here, a push report for team members that have policy acknowledgements pending. And again, I could set that up as a push report, send it to whoever I need to or whatever department I need to, and get a nice clean list in an Excel or PDF of everybody that has outstanding policy acknowledgements. So again, just digitizing this and putting it in a system that is distributing it for you automatically makes this a lot easier because I have spoken with customers that were beginning to onboard our tool that were doing this through calendar reminders or Excel spreadsheets or even pieces of paper. And this just builds in so much accountability and visibility across the entire organization. All right. As we continue on, let's go back to Abigail's profile. I want to show some additional things. So in Abigail's profile here, on her overview tab, we also have this compliance section here. So for Abigail, rather than having a file folder, manila folder for Abigail in a cabinet somewhere that has her license, her insurance, her background check, and her employment verification, I can digitize all those things. I can save them in Woven, and I can have Woven check on the statuses of those things. I can even have Woven prompt for when it's time for something like a license to expire. It'll send out reminders as appropriate. So here I can see just some examples here of a license has been uploaded, but it's missing information. I could then take action, or Abby could take action on that. I have a pending insurance that I need to look at. Background check is in good standing, and they're not required to do employment verification for the position that Abigail works in. If I was looking at this and I realized that, hey, I need them to do something with their license, I actually don't have to go anywhere else. You can see there's some tasks that I've assigned to Abigail. I could go ahead and press new task here, and through our app, actually send Abigail a task to go do whatever action it is required for her license. So again, just bringing it all centralized. You're now utilizing two pieces of functionality here in Woven, which would be our compliance functionality as well as tasks. And those things work really great together as reminders. All right. Honorable mention here is you could also do reports in the report center for these items as well. So if I go into the report center, I also have team member compliance reports. So I can pull team member position compliance right here as a push report. And so I can get across the entire organization on a team member level. How compliant am I? And other locations potentially that are having issues with compliance or certain team members. And I can get, again, entire organization wide data on that. If you happen to be a franchisor considering Woven as well, we have roll-up reporting for this specific piece of functionality all the way up to the brand level rather than the franchisee level. So we hit this on both sides. Okay. Next, I want to talk a little bit about integrations. So we're going to start that conversation back on Abigail's profile. So looking at Abigail's profile, again, I have the ability to come in here and let's say go into an insurance here and upload an additional one or change this one, those types of things. And I can do that. But I will mention that we also have some integrations available specifically for background checks. We have partnered with DISA as well as Universal Background. And so there are integrations with those two companies. I'm actually going to show you what this can look like. To set it up for the first time, you would reach out to your DISA or Universal rep, and then they would coordinate with my support team to get it set up. And my support team can kind of walk you through the clicks. However, here in account settings under integrations, just I'll click on this DISA example here. We would put in who do we want to notify if there's an error for some type of background check, and then configure how I want it to behave. So do I want to auto verify? Do I want have it be checked by a manager? Do I want to, I'm going to need these things from DISA, like an API key, a shared secret, so it's nice and secure. Not everyone can get to this integrations page as well. Is the integration enabled? Yes or no? Does it apply to new hires versus am I also going to have it apply for rescreens? Is it manually set up for certain job titles? And I could also have it only set up potentially for certain locations. And so I can have different billing codes and things in here. Again, I don't want to go too deep in the technicalities of how this works. However, I'll just mention that if you are interested in doing this and you are not doing it today, reach out to your customer success manager here at Woven and we can help you. Universal check, a universal background check is going to work the same way. But the great benefit of doing all of this is if you set this up, this information, when we get it for an employee like Abigail, whose profile we've looked at it a few times, it's going to auto upload for you into their profile in the background check section. So it's saving you that data entry step through some pretty cool technology. Okay. All right. So as far as my agenda for today, we kind of flew through things, which is great. We've actually went through a lot. I didn't know if we'd be able to cover it all. Since we're wrapping up a little bit early, I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm able to answer if you have some. And if not, I'll give you some time back in your day. As always, I really appreciate you being here. This was our 12th webinar of the year as we get our sea legs under us. We're likely to do some additional webinars next year, although they may be some different topics, so they're not duplicative. Thanks. Happy holidays. Thanks for being here. Merry Christmas. Any questions, I'll happy to hang out for the next few minutes and take them. We'll give it about 60 seconds for questions, and if none pop in, I will let you all go. All right. I haven't seen any questions pop in, so take it easy. Have a great holiday season. Bye.